the International News Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Dunicic. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Join our growing international community. Today we go back to the United Kingdom, where the PartyGate Scandal against Boris Johnson and his Conservative government is beginning to increase in intensity. Today, British lawmakers in the Parliament approved a formal investigation into or as to whether or not Boris Johnson knowingly lied and misled members of Parliament. Now, to give you some context, this has become the biggest and largest scandal since Boris Johnson took the position of Prime Minister. Now, from the beginning, Boris Johnson never had widespread support. That being said, politically, his Conservative Party has maintained a substantial majority in the Parliament. Now, many criticisms have been levied against Boris Johnson for his behavior, his comments, his hairstyle, his appearance, and just generally the way that he acts. But none of these scandals have actually been true scandals, if you will. None of them have been for misbehavior or impropriety. There was one minor one where police were called for a domestic disturbance or alleged domestic violence that occurred in the home of Boris Johnson with his wife, Carrie. Now, none of these, that was before he was Prime Minister, none of these occurred after he had taken the role as the UK's most senior politician. Now, to many people outside of the United Kingdom, this scandal seems silly, if not outright pointless. Basically, what Boris Johnson and many other Conservative government officials have been accused of is holding a vast amount of regular parties, drinking parties, and social gatherings in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, where the government itself introduced widespread lockdowns, fines, fees, and even jail time for normal British people who had or had done the same thing. Now, this level of hypocrisy is undeniably intense, and it does show a behavior towards the law that states, oh, I'm in the government, so I'm better than the normal people. I can have all the fucking parties I want. Ha ha ha. Look at all the pores. That kind of behavior is inherently disgusting. Now, nonetheless, it's still minor. This is not a major corruption scandal. It doesn't involve embezzlement. It doesn't involve taking kickbacks, bribes, or having opponents killed, or restricting freedom of speech like many other major scandals in other nations occur. But this is serious when you look at it comparatively. Now, last week, Boris Johnson was fined £50. That's about $66. A small amount for police after they found evidence that he had attended his own birthday party in June of 2020. Now, this was in the middle of the intense aforementioned lockdowns in the UK. Now, a £50 fine might not seem like a big deal, but think of it in context. Boris Johnson is the only prime minister in the entirety of British history to be found to have committed a crime and fined for it. Now, historically, this hasn't happened before, and many members of Parliament and other politicians and talking heads in the UK have called on Boris Johnson to resign. Now, what is and has been a historical offense that has led to prime ministers resigning has been lying to Parliament. Now, what Parliament is accusing Boris Johnson of doing is lying about attending these parties. And honestly, it seems that he's already done so because he's changed his story. Before Boris Johnson was fined last week by the police, he had claimed that he had not attended any parties whatsoever during the lockdown. Now, after being fined, Boris Johnson changed his story and said that he was there, but to him, they didn't seem like a party or formal gathering. Now, it's clear that he's changing his story, and it's relatively clear that this has occurred. Police have found evidence for one party occurring, and 16 other similar incidences are being investigated. Now, these 16 parties have been organized by different Conservatives in the government of UK and have had many different themes, some of them being bring your own booze or wine time Fridays. Now, of these 16 parties, it's estimated or believed by investigators that Boris Johnson has attended 6 of them personally, showing a recurring pattern of behavior that Boris Johnson believes that he's above the regular British person. Now, I am not going to defend Boris Johnson's behavior. In fact, I'm completely abhorred by it. But Many people in the Labour Party keep pushing for his resignation. And in fact, many conservatives as well, Boris Johnson's own party, cannot, in good faith, defend the Prime Minister. The amount of defense and support for Boris in his own party is declining every single day. Conservatives are not going to hold the party line. Britain holds an old Anglo-Saxon culture of politics that believes that its politicians should at the very least appear to be obeying the law and should not so flagrantly, publicly, and openly act against the face of it. Now, not only is that the case, but also Boris Johnson's behavior is going to lose the Conservative support, and local elections are coming up on May 5th. Now, depending on the results of the Conservative Party, if they are successful, Boris Johnson is probably going to maintain the support of his party to maintain his position as Prime Minister of the UK. But if they are not successful, Boris Johnson is going to lose the support of his party, and it is probably going to result in him resigning. Now, Johnson himself has simply continued doing the job and is almost ignoring this crisis. Last week, we reported on the new immigration bill that was introduced in the United Kingdom. Today, Boris Johnson was attending a diplomatic trip in India. When asked questions about the scandal and the ongoing investigation, he said, "I'm just going to focus on doing the job." Now, he clearly is not invested in this investigation and is acting as if it's an afterthought. Now, many conservatives want him removed. Many people in the Labour, almost everyone in the Labour Party wants him removed. But maybe right now, that is not the best idea. Yes, Boris Johnson's behavior was unacceptable. Yes, it shows a mentality that he believes he's above the British people. And even worse, it shows that he's willing to lie to the Parliament of the UK. However, changing leadership right now at this very crucial moment in British history could prove to be more problematic than it's worth. Understand that in Europe, a massive war, which we have been reporting on consistently, in Ukraine is going on. Boris Johnson himself, despite his failings in this scandal, has demonstrated that he is a strong leader supporting the Ukrainians in their fight against Russia. Replacing him with an unknown or unpredictable successor could provide a completely unknowable and undeterminable variable in the security of Europe and global security as a whole. Domestically speaking, the UK is going through a massive inflation crisis, like many other countries in the rest of the world. Now, this inflation has affected, in particular, food prices and energy prices, essentially being a form of economic crisis, making daily life much more expensive and harder for everyday British folk. Now, while the government of the UK can't do much to alleviate this problem, it can make it worse. Removing the Prime Minister and having him replaced by someone who many people don't know who it will be is going to cause a massive amount of uncertainty. Even when his successor is put into office, the markets are not going to know how to react to this Prime Minister, and it could cause an even further crash in the British markets and the British economy, making life more and more difficult for the people of the UK. While Boris Johnson's behavior is absolutely unacceptable and there should be some kind of sanctions to prevent this behavior in the future, forcing a resignation and replacing him right now would be a mistake. Britain needs to maintain its leadership. And outside of this scandal, Boris Johnson has actually been a relatively decent prime minister that has managed to pull the UK out of one of its worst crises, which has been Brexit. A notable mistake, one that was supposed to completely damage and destroy the UK's economy, but notably because of Johnson's ability to negotiate with the EU, this did not happen and the UK maintained its status quo and its general economic well-being. Replacing anyone right now in the office of Prime Minister could prove to be hectic, and also, in recent history, Britain, following Theresa May, has not had any stable leadership. This is only going to throw the country into more chaos, something that the UK, and pretty much any country, especially any nation in Europe, cannot afford right now. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let's have a nice open discussion about what's going on in the UK and whether or not you believe Boris Johnson should just get this over with and resign. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.